Shalom, shalom, and welcome. Welcome to White Rose family. My name is Symmanayah, and these are the words I'm compelled to present to an awakening nation. This is part of the Judgment Warnings and Instructions series. My brothers and sisters, this is the 21st installment of the Judgment Warning and Instructions. Although all that I put up is important to these end times, the Judgment Warning and Instructions are some extreme components to the realities of what is expected, my brothers and sisters. I can say no more than let me present the words and step back and watch the Spirit of Yahuah in Yahusha's name stir your minds, body, and soul to take heed to the warnings that are ahead. In this installment, my brothers and sisters, I want to bring your attention to the fall of nations and governments. You see, my brothers and sisters, there are those who read scriptures and talk about scriptures, who talk about end time prophecies, talk about the beliefs. But for some reason, the realities of the details and processes that are attached to these end time prophecies often go ignored or glazed over or softened. My brothers and sisters, we are in spiritual battle. For such a time as this, we are facing some things that require us to discern what the Spirit of Yahuah has to say to us individually and collectively as an awakening nation. We speak of the belief of 144,000. Some neglect the great multitude, both of which are mentioned in the 7th chapter of Revelations. But how many of us have asked ourselves, how will that come to be? And is the Spirit of Yahuah making known how this will come to be? Before I get into this segment, the fall of nations and government, let me read the following. Warning and disclaimer. The information contained in White Rose family represents instructions and warnings to individuals who believe they are drawn to the Almighty Creator Yahuah, to Yahusha Mashyach, referencing John 6:44. And I say to you, if you do not believe you are being drawn by the Almighty Creator to Yahusha Mashyach, these words are not for you. The content presented centers around end-time realities. Please be advised this site is not intended for children under 16 years of age, to be compliant with various media platforms. By continuing forward, you agree to hold Symmanayah harmless of any influence in or actions that arise as a result of watching, listening, and or viewing the content presented. The views expressed do not reflect the owners, management, and or shareholders of this media platform. Please note, I am not affiliated with anyone or organization with similar names. Yashar'al, the fall of nations and government. You see, my brothers and sisters, we read scriptures and all too often things that the Most High Father said that he will do, things that he will order. We disregard when those realities come before us. We have moved beyond types and shadows, O set-apart nation. Types and shadows are things that resemble end-time prophecies, but we're not there yet. We are in the thick of things for such a time as this. We have reached points of no return on many fronts. I want you to understand, as the fall of nations and governments occur, this means civil unrest, economic collapse, wars, battles, fights. But it is a time for we who are set apart by the Almighty Father to listen to his voice and discern what he is saying to us as he prepares us for our final days, whether it be martyrs for Yahusha's name, whether it be the final resting points for individuals that are traveling, being gathered from the four corners of the earth, and being that oasis, so to speak, where they can rest and freshen up as they make their journey back to the promised land, or whether it be preparing to be among the ranks of those gathered from the four corners of the earth. It is important, my brothers and sisters, for us to recognize what the scriptures say as it relates to the fall of nations and governments. Allow me to press forward on this matter. It is important that you take ear. You see, one of the reasons why it's extremely important, my brothers and sisters, is this. With COVID-19, you have individuals who are representative of the religious community, or should I say even representative of the set-apart community, who think that COVID-19 is something that they can rebuke and cast away, failing to look at when the Almighty Father ordered famine, disease, and pestilence to represent the fruit of our rebellion and wickedness. So what the Almighty Father orders is not something for us to rebuke. What we are to do is discern how he wants us to respond to these. Remember, he reigned on the just and the unjust. But how we respond to the things that occur are differently. To the set-apart ones, it weakens our bodies mentally and physically. But our spirit should rise up strong and manage these earthen vessels and still give all esteem to the Almighty Father and walk through all that we are placed in. For know this, the breath that we receive, that life we receive, is indeed from the Almighty Father. I'm saying this to say, just like all the civil unrest, economic collapse, the tensions that we are witnessing, there is a way and a response for the set-apart children of Yahuah. Let us prepare to discern his workings in us. Let us prepare to discern and yield to the tasks that are before us, related to the gathering of his set-apart children. Let me present this. Let's consider the relationship between nations and governments. Nation is defined as a large body of people united by common descent, history, culture, or language, inhabiting a particular country or territory. Government, the political direction and control exercised over the actions of the members, citizens, or inhabitants of communities, societies, and states. Direction of the affairs of a state, community, etc. Political administrations. Here you can see that nations and government have a lot of things in common, a lot of similarities, my brothers and sisters. Let me continue by presenting some critical questions. Do you believe the scriptures to be true? Do you seek to do the will of the Almighty Father Yahuah? Do you believe Yahusha is the word of Yahuah from virgin birth, sacrifice, and resurrection, that Yahuah sent his set-apart spirit in Yahusha's name, as it is written in the scriptures? Are you not aware, my brothers and sisters, that this is so? John 14:26, that informs us that the Almighty Father sent his set-apart spirit in Yahusha's name. Forgive me, my brothers and sisters. I thought I had that turned down. And actually, I forgot to turn it down. My brothers and sisters, the question is, do you believe? If you don't believe that the Almighty Father Yahuah is the Almighty One, if you're not one that's seeking to do his will, this message is not for you. If you do not believe Yahuah sent his word manifest in the flesh in the person of Yahusha, if you do not believe in the virgin birth, sacrifice, and resurrection, and that Yahuah sent his spirit in Yahusha's name, these words aren't for you. If they are, my brothers and sisters, continue with me as I press on the matter of the fall of nations and governments. Come with me. Let's visit the following passage. Matthew chapter 12, verse 25. It says, and Yahusha knew their thoughts and said to them, every reign divided against itself is laid waste, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. These are powerful words, my brothers and sisters. And if you look at dictatorships, there is a group that desire democracy. So therefore, these dictatorships, these countries that have a dictatorship are divided against itself. If you look at these nations that consider themselves democratic, there's what they would call the left or the right. The conservative or liberal. The right, they're calling the conservative, and the left, they're calling the liberal. Division, my brothers and sisters. Different parties. Democracy itself exhibit division. To the set-apart children of Yahuwah, we must know, even though some would say it's the checks and balances, this is not the structure of set-apart Yashar'al. And the scriptures say, these reigns divided against itself are laid waste. They cannot stand. So what do you think is happening as civil unrest, as the economy spiraled towards collapse, as violence and protests are erupting? Do you believe the scriptures? And if so, then for such a time as this, we're seeing the magnification of proof that nations and governments divided against themselves cannot stand. Luke 11:17, it said, and he, knowing their thoughts, said to them, every reign divided against itself is laid waste, and a house divided against itself, against a house, falls. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. I have said that I will frequently ask the question, are you satisfied with your moray? Are you satisfied with your teacher, your spiritual head, your leader, your pastor or bishop? Are they providing you the instructions of what you need to do as end times become intense? Or are you chasing the group, the majority rule? Are you following the camp, the community, the fellowship, into a path that may not be ordered by the Almighty Father? Are you given instructions on what to do in the event your leader, your moray, your teacher, becomes disabled or pass? Are you prepared to receive the instructions of a new leader? Are you prepared to witness your leader passing the baton of leadership? For they may be one that do not have the skill sets to manage or contribute to leadership in serving mass numbers. You see 144,000 Hebrews, 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Yashar'al, along with a great multitude, will represent millions of people. And to each, we have received a skill that is necessary for binding the body of Yashar'al together in unity. Therefore, there will be some shuffling, reshuffling, repositioning. There will be some leaders that will take on even more authority as led by the Spirit of Yahuwah and may not be able to give you that attention that you need. Are your leaders describing to you that during these end times, we must prepare to grow into discerning what the living Spirit of Yahuwah is saying in Yahusha's name? And if so, my brothers and sisters, consider the current conditions of nations and governments, famine and pestilence and disease, even the way democracy as well as dictatorships are run right now. There are protests because there's an imbalance across the face of the earth. Are you not aware that Satan will lose, that he has lost, and that he is losing? Are you aware that he cannot stand? Why? Because he himself is divided against himself. His reign is divided against itself. He will not stand. He will not be victorious. Will not. So I say to you, O Yashar'al, look at the realities. Wickedness will not stand, for the enemy's desire is to seek, kill, and destroy. The Almighty Father wants us to be mindful that nations and governments will fall. Look at their conditions. Look at the infrastructure. Look at how they're responding to climate change and global warming. Look at how they're responding to racism. Look at how they're responding to classism. Yashar'al. We have been inundated with rhetoric and language and propaganda. One pushing individuals to what they call the left, one pushing individuals to what they call the right. Some saying you must choose left or right. Some don't understand what left or right mean, and they also interchange it with words like conservative and liberal, making us think that one party, one side or the other are totally different. But wickedness resides on both sides. In democracies, in the U.S., Republicans versus Democrat. My brothers and sisters, we will realize that this is a nation divided against itself, and these are end times. And to prove that the scriptures are right about any nation divided against itself will fall, we will see the collapse of government as we know it. Dictatorships and democracy. Know this, the ultimate divide is set apartness versus wickedness. And in these end times, we will gradually see the wicked merge together, still fighting one another, but they will merge together under the banner of one world government. And there will be the anti-Messiah known as the Antichrist and the false prophet. So the world will unite as far as those that are wicked, as far as those that are set apart. The set apart children of Yahuah will unite and be gathered from the four corners of the earth, will unite and be stronger in one spirit, mind, body, and soul, as linked by the almighty power of the Almighty Father. Ultimately, it will be two battling forces. Satan and his armies against Yahusha, our sovereign, our king, and his armies. And only one will be victorious, my brothers and sisters. The fall of government and nations. Hear, O set apart Yashar'al, end times will prove only two nations will be left to battle. So what we will see is a merger, massive mergers, as the wicked ones come to follow the ways of the anti-Messiah, the Antichrist. The set apart children of Yahuah will merge into unity and be gathered, strengthened. And as destruction, physical destruction occurs, we will see these massive mergers and movement on both sides. My brothers and sisters, it's time for us to know what is expected. I cannot emphasize this enough. It's time for us to realize the importance of being prepared. Yashar'al. My brothers and sisters, prepare to witness the fall of nations and government. We will grow to understand that expectations must be developed with belief and preparedness. In other words, if we believe nations divided against itself shall fall and can't stand, then we must ask ourselves, what are the characteristics? How would it look as we begin to witness the fall of nations and government? What are our expectations of what we should be doing and what we are to do in the coming of days? We must prepare to know how to move about in the midst of these failures in governments and nations. We must embrace a sense of urgency and recognize chosen leadership with a ready mind, body, and spirit. Proof comes. Believe it. Respond. My brothers and sisters, are we prepared to respond? Consider the details and methods leading these failures. Remember, end time prophecies. We're wrapping up, my brothers and sisters. We're wrapping up into an era where things of yesterday are just that. I speak often of the importance of focusing forward, letting our eyes look forward and our eyelids be straight. I speak often of Proverbs, for I believe for such a time as this, O Yashar'al, focus is one of the most critical factors in our discipline. Focusing on what the Spirit of the Almighty Father is saying to us as we walk filled with the Spirit. Focus on His discipline. Focus on the need when we come across areas where we've stumbled or fallen, that we repent swiftly and recognize the atoning blood of Yahusha Mashyach and rise up strong in the Spirit. We must consider the details and the processes, my brothers and sisters. We must be mindful of contributing factors to the fall of government and nations, contributing factors to the building up of a set-apart nation. Yashar'al, contributing factors. They are real. Contributing factors to the fall: famine, pestilence, disease, civil unrest, economic disorder. The signs of the times are ramping up. There is a confluence. In other words, many different tragedies are coming before us. Challenges are coming before us. But you, O Yashar'al, do not seek to gain your life, but seek to lose your life for Yahusha's name. Seek to discern what Yahusha is saying to you, what the Spirit is saying to you, directly in or through another. Learn what it means to subject yourselves one to another. That is to yield to the Spirit of Yahusha working in us, through us, one towards another. There will be separations. There will be movement. There will be the gathered, my brothers and sisters. People we live with. There are some that be on our side and some against us. Betrayal will be in the household. Lifestyles will change as we move. We will learn to adapt and adjust. Job and career changes will occur. Social distancing will take on a whole new meaning as we find ourselves being gathered by the Almighty Father. Change in rules and regulations will occur. You see, we have the laws of government and we have the laws of the Almighty Father, His 10 Commandments, His laws, His statutes, His living orders. In the midst of chaos and civil unrest, my brothers and sisters, we will see the laws, the rules, the regulations that the Almighty Father has for His children emerge as we gather together. Preparations for active movement have begun and will intensify, and some have begun to move. It is important, my brothers and sisters, that we know how to identify leadership and living orders. Ask questions, vet, examine, my brothers and sisters. There's more. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. You may be tired of these words. They may seem too repetitive to you. But each day you will wake up, and each day you will see what is unfolding. And each day there's a stirring of your spirit. And each day you will find the discipline and living in instructions of the Almighty Father welling up inside. Consider your position and coming demands. Gird up, O Yashar'al. Gird up, for these days are real. What's your position? Are you a leader? Do you know that a leader's job is to serve as well as lead, to demonstrate how we're to engage our relationship with the Almighty Father in Yahusha's name? Are you satisfied? Again, I ask you, are you satisfied with your leader, Morey, teacher, pastor, bishop? Are you in the midst of compromising gatherings and assemblies? Or are you one being sharpened? Are you one being sharpened and disciplined to lead, to improve on leadership, to serve? Are you one being girded up to be strong enough to identify set-apart leadership and confirm and reaffirm the structure that the Almighty Father is presenting before you? What's your position, O Yashar'al? There will be a great gathering. I cannot stress enough, my brothers and sisters, out of the great divide comes a great gathering. Isaiah 11:12 mentions how he will gather us from the four corners of the earth. Isaiah 43:5-7. I want to bring your attention when they say, all those called by my name whom I've created, formed, even made for my esteem. You see, there are those who will sugarcoat it and have you to believe that all of us are going to be gathered from the four corners of the earth before the physical return of Yahusha. So if you hear someone saying we're going to be gathered from the four corners of the earth, ask them questions. I stress it all the time. Ask questions, my brothers and sisters. You can read this passage. There are others that talk about a gathering, my brothers and sisters. Set apart leaders, chosen leaders from the Almighty Father and messengers will rise before us. Yashar'al, if someone is saying to you, we're going to be leaving Babylon, or we're going to be gathered back to the promised land, we're going to be gathered to the wilderness, there are different positions of belief. Some believe this will not happen until resurrection day. Some believe this will happen before the physical return of Yahusha Mashyach, and some don't even acknowledge Yahusha Mashyach. My words are to those who acknowledge Yahusha Mashyach. My words are to you who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father. For if you seek to do his will, you'll know no one can come to him except by Yahusha. My brothers and sisters, if it was everyone before the physical return, who then are those that are led astray? Who then are those that will die for Yahusha's name? Who then are those who stumble and fall? Do the scriptures tell us that everyone before the physical return of Yahusha will be able to discern right and wrong and will not be on milk? No, my brothers and sisters. Do the scriptures tell us that he's going to wait till everybody become mature? Not so. You see, so there are those on milk. There are those stumbling and falling. There are those who will make mistakes, much greater than those who are on meat. There are those who will know when to follow and those who will struggle and be left behind. Make no mistake, the Almighty Father will indeed bring correctness to those to fulfill his promises to his children. But there are also those that will be taken home. They will face physical death. Leaders will rise. Obstacles will be removed. In some cases, we will discover the strength and fortitude to come away from false leaders and teachers. Come away from teachers, leaders, mores, community heads who prop themselves up or allow their flock to prop them up over Yahusha. This is wicked. And either correction comes or they will face being removed or left behind, or both. Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, set apart leaders and messengers will rise. We must begin to consider that in movement, in end times, something is occurring. In other words, if we're saying end times and we're saying soon the Mashyach will return, we must consider remaining time. What directions and instructions are going forward during these remaining days? Some of you, if you look around, you have seen cities, municipalities, and geographic locations literally block off entrances and exits. If they're going to be increase in civil unrest, if there's going to be an increase in chaos, do you not know that some people, as it ramp up, as proof comes to be more readily visible, there will be brothers and sisters left behind? Are you prepared, O Yashar'al, to know how to be disciplined in the event you are caught in a city, a country, a county, a state? What are you being taught as it relates to the remaining time? What directions do you believe you must go? My instructions is Yashar'al will be gathered from the four corners of the earth. My instructions are those on the Western Hemisphere to encourage them to consider moving towards the Commonwealth of Virginia, the state of Virginia. I believe those within 48 hours, 48, maybe 72 hours, will have a better chance at witnessing and or being gathered from the four corners of the earth than those who are outside the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I'm saying as far as the Western Hemisphere. For I believe, O Yashar'al, that the more proof becomes intense, as the fall of nations and governments ramp up, as chaos intensifies, even when it seems like it's getting calm, remember the scripture said, no nation divided against itself can stand. So even if it appear to be corrected, it will fall, O Yashar'al. So we must consider the remaining time of what we're to do. I believe the Most High has showed me that the Western Hemisphere we will be gathered, that Yahudah carries the scepter that will lead the four corners gathering, that there will be a massive number from the tribe of Yahudah, and that the other 11 tribes, as mentioned in Revelation 7 chapter, as well as a great multitude of those who may not know specifically what tribe they represent, but know this. Don't try to trace genealogies, for the scriptures say avoid foolish questions in genealogy. Know this, if you are seeking to do the will of the Almighty Father, if you are indeed led by his spirit in Yahusha's name, if you have come to be a part of the set-apart children of Yahuah, you are under the banner of Yashar'al. Revelation 7 chapter mentioned 12 tribes, but ultimately once the 12 tribes have been gathered, once they have fulfilled what is written, all will be gathered under one banner after each tribe have fulfilled Revelation 7 chapter, after the 144,000 have fulfilled what is written. Together, the whole entire set-apart group of children of the Almighty Father will be known as the nation of Yashar'al. My brothers and sisters, there are challenges, there are hurdles to consider. And you hear me talk of forced movement. You see, we are stiff-necked, dull of hearing. The gathering of the set-apart children of Yahuah is not going to be passive. It's not going to be, if they will listen to me. Will you listen to me? Will you come? My brothers and sisters, these are living orders. Prophecies will be fulfilled. Challenging hurdles to consider. Current and final gatherings. Gathering bit by bit, step by step, person by person. Watching the merging of a set-apart nation will occur. Identifying leadership, structure, managing resources and supplies. Let the discussions begin. Let your leaders, your mores, your teachers, your pastors, your shepherds, explain the details of what is to occur. Some will carry resources, some will be guided in order to leave with the clothes on their back, and they will meet up with others that will have resources to share. Talk about rationing of food, talk about establishing priorities, talk about how transportation will come to be. Pray and watch, O Yashar'al, for living instructions are going before you. Know how to identify those who really don't have a plan that includes you, and learn to discern those who have a plan that does include you. Learn what it is to become focused, my brothers and sisters, for as death, as sickness, as unfortunate, as some would say, as conditions become extremely challenging, learn where to turn your head, your eyes, your face. Learn which direction your footsteps should go. Discern it. Don't go by a rule of go left or right. For some cases, he may have you go left today and right tomorrow and forward or backwards. Learn how to move. Understand and discern what movement will be for set-apart Yashar'al. For there will be the rise of the set-apart children of Yahuah. The time is now. Discuss it. Not argue, discuss. And if something's not right, my brothers and sisters, ask yourselves, is this where I want to be? Again, my brothers and sisters, as I stated, no reign divided against itself can stand. Are you not aware of what I showed, what I spoke on earlier? Matthew 12:25 and 11:17, which talks about no house divided against itself. Yashar'al, no nation, no kingdom, no government. Matthew 25:11 and Luke 11:17. The fall of nations and governments. I say to you, Yashar'al, if I'm providing instructions that push you closer towards the Almighty Father Yahuah, if I am providing the things that you need to know and be mindful of to equip you, to equip us with sound instructions, if I'm providing anything that contributes towards life building among the set-apart children of Yahuah, help me by subscribing and sharing these words with others. There may be something that you miss and someone close to you receive. There may be something that you get and someone else that's listening did not get. Share and see, do you agree on the words I present? Pray and seek to discern if there's life in them. I ask for your help in subscribing. If I reach 100 subscribers, I can then brand this channel more readily and easier to point individuals to share the words I believe the Spirit of the Almighty Father has given me to present before an awakening nation. My confidence comes in Isaiah 55:11, that lets us know that his word will not return to him empty nor void. But I also know the importance of asking, and I ask for your help. Subscribe, share, examine, vet, question all that I present. I know it's not about me or Yashar'al, but it is about worship and obedience. It is about discerning how to subject ourselves one towards another as his spirit works in us, through us one towards another. You hear me talk about subjecting one another, ourselves one towards another. As it's written in Ephesians 5:21, the literal is speaking of a husband and wife relationship, but it goes beyond that. For if we are to be as Yahusha Mashyach, he is the husband and we are his bride. And we are to understand the relationship. If we are vessels of his spirit, which I believe we are, we who are set apart, then we must learn to step back and listen to him speak through another to us, or speak through us to another, one towards another. The fall of nations and governments. Ask yourself, my brothers and sisters, what are the characteristics of that? What does that resemble? And seek the answer. For if you begin to discern the answer, then you will see all that is happening right now is the answer to that question. And are you spending time being caught up with the masses, with the riots and the protests for whatever reason? Or are your eyes looking forward, your eyelid looking straight? Are you looking to see what the Spirit of Yahusha is saying to you? What words you are to echo? Speak. Prepare to witness that we are at a point of no return, O Yashar'al. those who are of the outer court, those who do not seek to do the will of the Almighty Father, those who do not resemble and represent the set-apart children of Yahuah. These words aren't to you. Your schedule of events, the results and outcome of what's to happen, proof will provide you with something totally different. But to the children of Yahuah, let our eyes look forward, our eyelids look straight. Let us discern what the Spirit is saying. Let us prepare ourselves and let us begin to be fitly joined together. Let us know what it means to begin to ask questions of one another, to examine one another. Let us know what it means to be as iron sharpening iron, removing the impurities and rising up sharper, quicker than any two-edged sword as we are led by the Spirit of the Almighty Father. On that note, O Yashar'al, judgment, warnings, and instructions. Judgment of the Almighty Father is before the nations and governments, and we will witness them fall. I salute your patience, your tolerance, your pursuit of set-apartness. Know that end times are real. Yashar'al, until next time, I say to you, my brothers and sisters, my prayer is that you have the strength to endure and that you grow in discernment, to make the decisions that the Most High have for the man, the woman in the mirror, and the set-apart children, your brother, your sister, the set-apart family. To you, O Yashar'al, I bid you much Shalum.